Be mad because nobody loves you, bitch.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you wherever you are, because it is a morning somewhere for March 9th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns. Sitting right over there, we all love her. Her name is Ashley. How you doing, Ash?
Not too bad. Not too bad. How are you this morning?
Good. Silly morning this morning. Very, very silly morning this morning. I'm excited because tonight is boys' night at the pub, which is always a great night. And we're going to go off Thursday nights. Finn gets dressed up in his suit, and we go out. And I'm getting really excited because we got all the boys are here. Teddy's coming in this week, and we've got JD, Teddy, Finn, me. Your dad is here.
Yeah.
We got a full house, man. It's great. We're going to have everybody here for like a month and a half, everybody under one roof.
Boys' night at the pub is going to take up the whole pub.
When I get all the kids back under one roof, I get super, super, super excited about it. I'm so looking forward to this.
It's a good time, and it's nice to be able to spend time, everyone together, because with everyone, with some of the boys growing up and spreading their wings, you treasure those moments because you don't know how often you will get them. So every time is a gift.
The older kids are all at university age, so it could be that interim gap where they're all away from home. But then after university, I guess the traditional model now for modern times is that people return home after university and live at home. I read a stat recently. It was something over 50% of people return home after university.
It makes sense in a lot of ways, though. If you have a stable base to work out of, get your first job, and then you can start to accrue savings towards whatever future endeavors you have, it makes sense to do that.
Let's be honest, it makes sense because the cost of living fucking sucks.
Yes.
That's why it makes sense.
There is certainly that
we can try
to
to put a silver lining on it all we want to, but it's just like they talk about the economy, they talk about recovery, they talk about performance and jobs and everything. And then they always say, but people are unhappy. Why? We've talked about this before. And it's the same goddamn answer every time. And it's like no one's paying attention to it. It's the cost of living and housing specifically. That's why people are unhappy. And they keep saying it over and over again until they're blue in the face and nothing changes.
Well, it has a lot to do, I think, as well with people will look at the numbers and be like, but spending is as high as it ever was, which means economy strong. So why unhappy? And it's like, well, because the people, yes, they're spending everything they've got. No one can afford to save anything because a goddamn burrito costs $18.
I returned my rental car and it cost, $250 for Hertz to charge it or something.
Better yet, it was an EV. Yeah, there was just a funny story going around.
My table next to me just collapsed. Breaking news, everybody. Literally breaking.
There's a funny story going around that some guy rented a Tesla from a rental company, Hertz, and returned it. And then they charged him just shy of $300 for gas.
Okay, now did they say gas or did they say fuel? Because
they said fuel, but they have a different policy for EVs.
Okay.
So this guy, he says that he checked the skip the pump and save time option, which is like you return the car at any level of fuel and they fuel it up for you and then they charge you for it. Fine. But it's an EV, which goes under a separate policy. And they, I guess Hertz has a policy of they'll recharge the car for like $35.
Man, I'm turning into a goddamn conspiracy theorist here, Ash. Because it's like, here's the headline, right? Here's the headline for this. That's all over the place. I've read this article headline in almost every major news source that I browse. The headline, what it basically boils down to is rental car company overcharges customer for a line item. That's what it is. But because it's an electric vehicle and because it's related, if I may, to climate change, everybody runs with it. And I got to say, I'm starting to feel like it's all this PSYOP stuff that's against climate change. Like it's going to give you a negative impression of electric vehicles. Like, I don't want to rent an electric vehicle because they'll charge me $300 to recharge it.
Actually, what I take away from this is like, oh, they would have charged, they charge enormous amounts of money for refueling, but you could return an EV at any level of charge, and the most you would pay is $35, which is way less than a tank of gas.
So they just mischarged him. If that's their fee,
that's what it comes down
him.
to. Is they should have.
That's the headline.
Yes.
The headline is not that it costs you $300 extra to rent an EV.
Yes.
which is what I think most people are running with the headline, or at least presenting it that way.
For me, it's the headline. What I get out of the headline is the ridiculousness of being charged refueling for an EV.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense because you don't refuel them.
No, you don't. And if you came back with like 1% charge and they had to charge it, I think it would be fair for the rental car company to charge you. This is a weird thing, to levy a fee for charging the car. Charge you for charging it sounds weird. That's just normal. And when it's all these weird, dumb things, like when you rent a car, they'll say, do you want to fill it up right now and pay to have it filled up? It's like, do I want to fill up the car that I'm renting right now? Pay for it later?
Right.
And they're like, yes. It's like, why would I do that? Because if you do that now, not knowing how much gas you need, will charge you less. It's like gambling almost. And then you say, well, what's my other option? It's like, well, you can fill it up yourself. Here's the rates for the local pumps around the airport. Or if you come back and you didn't pay the pre-fill up fee, then we're going to charge you like $7 a gallon to fill it back up, to top it up. It's like, but I have to pay for the full tank now at the lower prepaid gambling price? Yes. It's so bizarre. Just charge me what the fucking gas cost. I'm paying you to rent the car. Why do we have to go through all these weird machinations and I got to take these risks like I'm playing a slot machine?
Here's what I take away from anything that gets confusing like that is if they're trying to confuse me into paying them for fuel, I should just pay for my own fuel.
Right. That's exactly what they're trying to do. But they know that you're going to be in a rush going to the airport because who the hell ever goes to the airport on time? Man, we talked about like how you're on a treadmill, right? And how time dilation makes the day longer. Somebody actually linked in our subreddit an article where they studied this. Where time feels longer while you're exercising. I think it's when you're focused. It's when it does it. The opposite, though, is an airline travel day. If you're traveling at 8 p.m., that day goes by in about 45 minutes. You know, you have, I have 3 hours to pack. It's no big deal. And suddenly you're getting into the car on your way to the airport, packing your bag.
Right. And you haven't.
How did this happen?
You haven't even managed to tie your shoes yet.
How did this happen?
You have to just dive into the car.
Is that the case for everyone, or is that just me?
Well, I remember you told me a story once that the only flight you ever missed was when you turned up 3 hours early.
I was so early to the airport. I was so early, and I somehow missed my plane. And it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention and the flight left without me. I was like, I just kept running into issues, and I'm like, how is everything taking 20 minutes to get done? Every single thing I did, and I missed my plane. Like I was not through security, I don't think, when my plane started boarding, and then security line was so long, but by the time they got there, the door was shutting, and I missed my plane. I was like, how did this happen?
That's a lot of issues.
It's crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. But I just, to come loop back around to this, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, even though I am. Clearly.
You don't believe in any conspiracy theories?
But it's just like, it's weird to me how it can be global news that somebody had a problem with a rental car company. Who submitted this to the press? Who ran with this? And how did this go to so many news outlets?
So, so I remember one time you and I were we were renting a car.
Let me get my red strings. Hold on. I got my bulletin board.
We were in France and we were renting a car. It might have even been from Hertz, Bernie. And
it would have been.
And there was a guy in front of us in line.
Oh, God.
And he was having some issue with this rental car. Like they didn't have the right car that he wanted for him, or I can't remember exactly what the issue was.
I think it was the different type of car, yes, than what he wanted.
And he was very upset. It was some older British gentleman. And what I remember from this interaction is standing behind this guy for 20, 30 minutes as he's berating this French guy who could not, by the way, care less, and going on about how I have a legal contract. And he was talking about how
That's a great impression of that guy, by the way. We must have heard the words legal contract 1,000 times.
And the guy was like, I don't know what you want. We don't have the car.
I literally, I cannot produce a car out of my ass, my friend. I cannot do that.
Here are your choices. And he's like, but the contract. And he kept saying as well, I'm going to contact the newspapers. And
if you can imagine a customer service
okay.
issue, if you can imagine an ammunition box with every different type of ammunition, this guy went through the whole goddamn box.
Every single one. Not a single one worked. I don't really remember what happened with that guy. Did he take the other car eventually?
No. We arrived. They were mid-argument. We were in that little tiny room for 20 minutes. And I was just like, let me get out of your way so you can deal with this guy. And I think the lady even took her time because she wasn't involved with the conversation. I think she took extra long on ours, hoping it would resolve by the time she finished with us. That's my personal opinion. But he was like, he was going to go to the press. He was going to drag them through the mud on social media. He was going to tell all of his friends.
I shall make a post on Facebook.
It was like watching someone fire, when the tanks show up and they start shooting at the Hulk. This French dude was like just standing there, just taking everything, bouncing off this guy. He didn't give a shit, and the guy was just laying into him.
So what I get from that is this guy who got overcharged, he went, Bernie, to the newspapers. But this time it worked.
The
newspapers went, that is quite interesting. And they wrote about it, except in this case, it's like all the online car websites.
You know what? You know what would be amazing? If it was that guy.
Maybe it's that guy. We don't know.
Or maybe it was the French guy who filled up the charge to Tesla for $300 or whatever it was. I don't know. I just find it interesting. Also, there's some people, side note here, I have read anecdotally, I don't know if there's any evidence or surveys to support this, or actually, we're on a podcast, so I should say, they did a study. They did a study, and they found out that now Americans are not the worst travelers. We're not even in probably the top 3.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah. Chinese tourists are renowned, and they actually have a lot of problems with trying to correct behavior of Chinese tourists. I think it's just really just like wealth. As people get wealthier and they start doing stuff, they're seen as being obnoxious tourists. But Brits are always at the top or near the top of the list for bad travelers.
I have been hearing about this.
Yeah.
I've been hearing about this quite a bit, that they're getting or have developed a poor reputation outside the UK for being fairly entitled. It happens a lot. They'll go to another country and be upset that the people in that country are not speaking English.
And drunk as well.
Oh, and that, yes.
So this guy, like our experience with this guy, also matches some things I've learned about some people where they do like to fight. Did you ever see the viral video where the woman goes to return something and she's unhappy with it? And the woman behind the counter goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Here's your refund." And the woman's like, "Oh."
Like she's disappointed because she didn't get to fight over
it.
And
the woman behind the register goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to argue about it?" She goes, "Would you mind?" She goes, "No." And then they have this like fake argument, which is great. I'm not one of those people. You know what I mean? My whole thing is like, first of all, make this right. They don't make it right. Then I want a refund on this or a discount if I can't get it refunded. And if they don't do that, I'm not going to sit there and waste my precious life and stress and all that stuff yelling at someone who probably can't solve the problem anyway. I just don't give that business my money ever again. And that's enough for me. And it probably doesn't even matter. It's probably, that's the Hulk version of, the big corporation that doesn't notice my little like 22 rifle shell bouncing off of it. But at the same time, it's like, that's all I got. You know what I mean? That's really all I got. And that's enough for me. And I can walk away going, good, I learned a lesson. I'm not dealing with these people ever again.
well, sometimes the best you can hope for is getting your money back. Speaking of which, Bernie.
Oh, wow. You're killing it on the segues this week.
Thank you. So we've talked on previous episodes of the show about the collapse of FTX and the fall of one Sam Bankman-Fried, who was recently sentenced to prison. There's a huge headline today that most FTX customers are going to get their money back. Okay. More than their money back.
Interesting headline as well.
But the FTX investors are going to get at least, it sounds like, 118% of their investments back. The idea is, I don't know how they're valuing it though. That's the interesting thing.
Right. I was raising questions about this when you mentioned this to me. So they have about $11.5 billion that they owe creditors according to their bankruptcy filings.
Yeah. So this is an article from ABC News saying FTX said in a court filing late Tuesday it owes about $11.2 billion to its creditors.
Yep.
The exchange estimates that it has between $14.5 billion and $16.3 billion to distribute to them.
Can you imagine having, by the way, in your life, a $2 billion wiggle room? We're not quite sure.
We're like, it's somewhere in that range.
We're going to ballpark this at about $14 billion.
Give or take $1 billion or $2 billion.
What a problem to have.
Yeah.
Holy shit. But so they're going to get their money back. So that unto itself is very interesting. This is a company that filed for bankruptcy. They owe their creditors $11.5 billion.
Well, that sucks.
And the 98% of people who are estimated to get more than their money back, they're estimated to get 118% of their money back. Put a pin in that for a second. That is How people who invested under how much?
$50,000.
If you-
So that's which
yeah.
is about 98% of the FTX customers are $50,000 or below.
So what I'm curious about, and maybe somebody who's more financially savvy in our audience can submit something to our subreddit about this. It seems to me that the valuation of what the customers are owed is from November of 2022,
Which is when FTX collapsed.
when they filed for bankruptcy,
Right.
and specifically when they filed for bankruptcy, because that's when those numbers and valuations would have been locked in place. I'm assuming none of the articles I can find can really shed any light on this. So I'm gonna do some more research before follow-up Friday on this. To put it in perspective, the all-time high for Bitcoin, the previous one when it ran up to about 65K, that was in November of 2021, that last peak, before the current one. So the dip in the middle of that is when this valuation would have occurred. So to say that people are going to get their money back, they're going to get the money back they were owed on the date of the filing, from what I understand. And yeah, you can say that they're getting their money back, but this is a weird one with crypto where if they would have had the money, we talked about this before, if they could have held on a little bit longer than this huge run-up, it's a big difference.
Right, because when FTX filed for bankruptcy, the value of Bitcoin was what, like $16,000?
So AP News is the only people that I saw that had any kind of calculation on this, and they're estimating that based on the difference in Bitcoin, just Bitcoin, in the difference in the price, that people who are getting their money back lost a potential increase of 290%.
Rough. So 118% doesn't quite hit the whole 290%.
So we'll do a little more research on this for Follow-Up Friday. But that's an interesting stat that now they're reporting that everyone's going to get their money back from FTX.
But at the very least, it's nice that people will get something back out of that as opposed to just like, oh, well, we're gone.
But then the Hertz CEO showed up and said, wait a minute, there was batteries here. No, sorry. We're going to charge you guys $8 billion to charge those batteries for your servers.
That's going to come up to, roughly between $14.5 and $16.3 billion.
Funny the way
Who'd
that
have
works.
thought? Other good news, did you see, Bernie, that production has started on the Blade Runner 2099 series?
Dude, there's two franchises that are doing really well. My former boss with the Chernin Group, they have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes coming out. I'm assuming Chernin Group is still producing those.
Those whole Planet of the Apes franchise is doing amazing.
They're so good. And then now for another franchise I love, Blade Runner has stuff in the news. It's all great. It's all great. And the casting announcements for Blade Runner 2099 look tremendous.
Yeah, so the only casting announcement I'm aware of so far is Michelle Yeoh is going to star in it. You would know her absolutely from, well, a billion things, but most recently, I think she won 8,000 awards for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she was absolutely fantastic.
She won every award everywhere.
all at once.
All at once. Well, in the course of a month.
So she's going to be starring in it. It's going to be for Prime Video. And the good news about this, Bernie, is that a lot of the production team from Blade Runner 2049 are working on this.
Let me ask you a question. So we have 2099. The last one was 2049.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the title, but do you know what year the original Blade Runner takes place?
I mean, it was before. So 2022?
You're close. 2019.
2019.
Yeah, 2019. And so it's interesting. So they skipped 30 years to go to 2049, and now they're skipping 50 years to go ahead to 2099.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I like seeing as well how they think things will change over that course of 50 years.
Yeah, I wonder, too, if they haven't made the announcements besides Michelle Yeoh, but I wonder if, like, Harrison Ford will feature in it in any way, or Ryan Gosling. I know, without spoiling anything, those characters have, complete stories. But at the same time, it's like, you can always do flashbacks to 50 years ago, or which they did tons of in 2049.
Yeah, or like they left something behind which this new character on their journey may discover and have some sort of intertwining elements. It's pretty exciting. So we'll see, I guess, as production continues along. It's started up. I think they were initially going to shoot in Belfast and they had to move to Prague. This show was going to be probably coming out fairly soon, but it got caught in the strikes last year.
I wonder too what the smallest story is that created the most adaptations, because this is a Philip K. Dick story that was originally written called Do androids dream of electric sheep?
And I've read it, and it's quite short.
Here's an interesting stat that I
Okay,
didn't know
go
about.
ahead.
I'm looking at all this stuff right here in front of me for Blade Runner. Philip K. Dick died at 53. He died 2 months before the original Blade Runner came out.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, the original Blade Runner debuted in June of 1982, and Philip K. Dick died in May of 1982.
Wow. I always wonder how authors see their adaptations on screen.
Quick correction, March, not May.
What would he have thought seeing that film? Would he have thought, this is what I had in my mind? Would he have thought this is completely off base? You never really know.
Well, you read it. Actually, I have to say, I have never read it. I'll have to go back and read it. But was it wildly different than Blade Runner?
It's like almost like a little like side adventure. It involves very much the testing,
Yeah.
And how that process goes. And it has, some of the elements, but it's not nearly as built out.
Yeah. Is Ridley Scott going to be directing 2099?
His company is working on it. And I believe one of the writers from 2049, Michael Green, is working on it as well. Also, some of the production team, Andrew Cosgrove, Broderick Johnson, and I think some of the other companies that worked on 2049 are working on this series for Amazon too.
Can I just say, there's nothing more like 80s for a sci-fi franchise, and Blade Runner came out of the 80s, than to call one of your installments, 99, 2099. Listen, they bait and switched an entire generation plus of kids of what the year 2000 was going to be like. Flying cars, everything. What do we get? What do we have?
We were supposed to have flying skateboards, Bernie.
We had dial-up internet. We were
Napster.
Yeah, we were
What a
just
train.
learning the potential of animated GIFs. We could see what they would become one day.
Downloading porn, one line of a JPEG at a time.
Yeah, so calling it 2099, it's like, I'm sure they'll come up with some insane stuff that's going to happen by 2099. And what will happen in 2099? Your grandkids will be reading about, hey, there's in trials, they're going to have a cure for cancer. They found water on Mars again. All the same shit.
Guess what? We know what's inside the moon. More moon.
Somebody got charged 1,200 credits to charge their Tesla. All right, anything else going on in the news? Anything else you want to talk about, Ashley?
Well, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Aaron Payne and Benjamin Coate, for sponsoring this episode of Morning Somewhere. Thank you for being patrons on our Patreon at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
And I hear they're getting back 118% of their money. That's not true.
Not even a little bit.
All right, well, that does it for us today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Morning Somewhere. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.